Rachel White is a cocktail waitress at a truck stop strip club in an interstate cowtown in Central California. As her life spirals out of control, poverty and paranoia force her to make a string of increasingly desperate decisions. Decisions that will lead her to the Hell Patrol, a paramilitary organization of hot rod driving mercenaries that hunt demons for fame and fortune. This is Hell Patrol Origins. Chapter 1. The fall wind blew down the cracked asphalt street, and as Rachel walked to work, she realized it was beginning to be the time of year that she hated the most. The dying light of summer and the first chill of winter, that 3-month-long specific place in hell on earth where the kind of clothing she could afford couldn't keep her comfortable. If she put on her one good coat now, it'd be too hot. But the zip-up hoodie she was wearing wasn't warm enough either. As a frigid gust blasted her face on what was otherwise a perfectly tolerable day, she shivered in the only clothes she could afford. Old beard t-shirts and military surplus from the second-hand store. She was dressed like a tornado blew through town in 1997 and threw G.I. Jane movie posters and Coors Light beer ads all over her body. As she stood on the sidewalk on the corner of 8th Street, Rachel saw the tiefling streetwalker on the opposite corner, trying to wave down John's. She waved at the prostitute. The prostitute waved back. Rachel knew Alex from the orphanage. She used to be a nice girl. Then she left the orphanage at 18 and became street trash. Rachel crossed the street with the green light and passed a couple of tiefling gangsters on the corner wearing baggy shirts and gang colors. They were loitering in front of a liquor store with tall boys of malt liquor in brown bags. As she passed them, they ignored her, and she ignored them. They were boys she knew from the orphanage, more street trash tieflings. They didn't bother Rachel because they knew her, and they knew she was broke. As she stood on the sidewalk to catch her next light, she saw a car go by. It was a redneck human in a work truck, and riding shotgun was the hooker from earlier. She had made a score and was taking the John to her motel room. Rachel noted the make and model of the car. It was a 93 Chevy Silverado with ladder racks. She identified the vehicle unconsciously, because that's what street trash did. And she was as much a street trash tiefling as any of the gangbangers and hookers she passed on the way to work. If that girl went missing, as hookers often did, Rachel would know to look out for a John in a red Chevy. Rachel passed the old lube and service garage, where she saw a tiefling man in grease-stained coveralls under a jacked-up sedan, changing the oil. It was probably the high point of his career. The lube shop wouldn't pay much, but he had a stable job in an industry that wasn't going anywhere, and he didn't have to rob or steal to pay his rent. That was the most any tiefling could ask for, if they didn't want to risk their life in Hell Patrol. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. The crosswalk light turned green, and now Rachel's path took her directly in front of the Hell Patrol office. It was the old jail building, an ugly cement brick place with walls and razor wire fences. It was painted completely black with large white block letters that read Hell Patrol on the side of it. There was one plate glass window on the front of the building. A man stood in it. A human man, with a military-style uniform with sergeant stripes. He looked happy, satisfied. He loved his job. He was staring out that plate glass window onto the street with his mug of coffee in his hand. It probably said something on it like #1 recruiter. Every day when she walked to work, Rachel stopped in front of the Hell Patrol building and contemplated walking in. She had never met the smiling staff sergeant in the window, didn't even know his name or speak to him, but he was always there whenever she stopped in front of the building, and he always waved at her, gestured to her to come in and sit down. Rachel always thought about it, but she never did it. People died in Hell Patrol. Well, not real people, just tieflings. Humans weren't even allowed to be in Hell Patrol. At least not in any part of Hell Patrol that was dangerous. It was the tiefling street trash that did all the fighting. Orphans like Rachel. But the money was good. The money was insane. Money she only heard about in the kind of fantasies that street trash tieflings had. Porn star money. Rap musician money. Buy a big house and fancy cars and vacation in Thailand money. Gucci suits and Patron tequila and all the stupid expensive shit that people who were poor bought when they became rich. So much money you wouldn't know what to do with it all. And all you had to do was join the Hell Patrol, strap into some shitbox hot rod, and hunt down demons with a car. The bigger and scarier the demon, the more they paid you. Sponsors, guns, car parts, paid rent, fame. Anything a tiefling could want, in exchange for risking their life in some kind of Mad Max bounty hunting dystopia. The sergeant in the window waved at her, like he always did. She waved back just to be polite, then turned her back. She knew he was gesturing at her to open the door, to step into his office. He always did, and it didn't seem to offend him that when she turned around, he did it to her back. It was all part of his game. He was a recruiter, and he recruited poor tieflings. He didn't have to work very hard. Eventually, someone who was desperate, poor, or just plain bored would walk by, and they'd come in. Rachel knew that the sergeant figured it was just a matter of time before she was short on rent 1 month. Then he'd have her, like he had so many recruits before her. That's what Hell Patrol was. It took out the trash, the tieflings, and the demons. Rachel kept walking. Life wasn't good. It never really was. But it wasn't intolerable yet. She wasn't desperate enough to risk her life. She knew that giant black brick shithouse would still be there if things got really bad. She walked past it to work every day, and in her head she said to herself, maybe next year. Maybe next month. Maybe next week. In her head, it got a little closer, a little more reasonable, the more her job tore away at her feelings. It wasn't even that the job was bad, or that she felt unsafe or threatened. It was just a monotonous, emotionally draining grind of a job. A dead end, a place that chewed up tiefling girls and spit them out. She went to work every day thinking she'd eventually find a way out, that she would figure out how to escape before it did to her what she saw it do to the other girls she worked with. Every day, when she passed Hell Patrol, the voice that told her it was a dangerous job and that she could die doing it, the voice got a little quieter. And the voice that said next week, it got a little louder. A human was walking down the sidewalk from the opposite direction. He was minding his own business and looked harmless. But Rachel was tired of it all and didn't take chances anymore. She stopped walking, stood to one side, and turned towards the street, giving the human plenty of room to pass. They politely ignored each other, a win for Rachel, and she turned back towards her work and kept walking. Ultimately, she stood in front of her place of work, the hellhole, an ugly warehouse building converted into a strip club. Some girls called it a gentleman's club, but the clientele wouldn't live up to that moniker. Tiefling girls didn't get to work in the nice clubs. They worked the ratchet clubs on the bad side of town. If there was any other side of town. There was a bouncer out front checking IDs that looked like a bald-shaved gorilla. He was wearing a biker vest and a black band t-shirt, and he had the big arms and chest and small legs that suggested he only did upper body exercise. He only worked the kind of muscle groups that made him look more intimidating. He had biceps that looked like a comic book character, and legs that looked like spaghetti strings. His arms were covered in tattoos of tentacles. He looked up at Rachel and smiled. "A little cold for that hoodie, huh, Ray? Come on in and get dressed. It's warm inside," he said. "Thanks, Johnny." Rachel walked into the club as he lifted the ratty old velvet rope for her to cross. All the tiefling girls that worked the hellhole liked Johnny Octopus. He was the kindest human any of them knew, an older brother they desperately wanted but never had. More importantly, he beat the shit out of the customers that tried to go too far with the girls, and he went from zero to gangster really quick on it. Johnny didn't like Rowdy Johns. He told the girls once that before the war, before tieflings existed, he was from a poor family, and his sister had to strip to put herself through college. So Johnny had a short fuse for guys that roughed up strippers. If the girls didn't like him because he was nice to them, they liked him because he went to bat for them. It didn't take a second for Rachel's cat eyes to adjust to the dark interior of the club. Seeing in darkness was one of the few perks of having a demon for a father. She looked around the room and breathed a sigh of relief. It looked like it was going to be a typical day shift. There weren't a lot of customers in the room, mostly the regular vets, and they were always well behaved. Rachel wouldn't make a lot of money today, but day shifts at strip clubs were always slow, and as long as she had enough to pay rent on the first of the month, Rachel preferred slow shifts with poor regulars over hard shifts with rowdies that like to get handsy. She made eye contact with one of the regulars and stopped next to his seat on her way back to the locker room. It was Tin Man, the Marine veteran with 2 metal legs that got blown up in a Humvee during a war. He was one of the military regulars that hung around the club on day shifts and drank beer. Rachel liked the vets. Most of them were nice to tiefling girls. They had seen fucked up shit during the war. They had liberated the demonic slave camps where most of the tieflings were born. They knew that being born a tiefling wasn't the tiefling's fault. They didn't spend a lot of money because they were all disabled vets on disability and government assistance and they couldn't work. But they were at least consistent customers that weren't rowdy and were good for a small trickle of tips. "Hey Ray, how was your walk to work? You didn't have any trouble, did you?" Tin Man asked. Rachel was his favorite cocktail waitress. "It was okay, Tin Man. You want me to get you another beer when I get back out here?" Rachel asked. "That'd be great, Ray. Can you check and see if Raven is working today?" Tin Man asked. Raven was the stripper name of Tin Man's favorite girl in the club. He had a thing for her. All the girls knew it. Raven could always get a lap dance out of Tin Man to pay for her dinner that night. He was her old reliable. "She should be on tonight. I'll check and let you know when I come back with your beer. If I find her, I'll send her to you," Rachel promised. Was what a strip club cocktail waitress did. She pimped her strippers. The waitresses delivered the drinks, lubed the johns up, and figured out what their tastes were, then sent the appropriate girl to go work the john. In return for the reference, the stripper would tip out the waitress a little cut from her own earnings. Rachel made it back to the locker room and clocked in. She opened her locker and started stripping, peeling off the hoodie and the ratty secondhand clothes, and began pulling out the creeping, silky, sheer black things off of the hooks in the locker. No part of Rachel's uniform could be politely described as clothing. She was about as covered up as any of the girls that danced on the main stage. She pulled a G-string on and then rolled some thigh-highs up her legs. The Chuck Taylors went into the locker, and the strappy stilettos came out. Rachel didn't need a bra. She had small breasts, and she got tipped better when she didn't wear one. Her final garment was a little black sheer fuck-me dress, a strapless cocktail dress that started perilously low on her chest, with the hem barely above her nipple, and a skirt that ended a hair below her ass. It was the club's standard uniform. All the waitresses wore sheer cocktail dresses. It was more clothes by volume than what the strippers wore, but it was just as easy to see everything. Satisfied with her state of partial nudity, Rachel sat down in front of a makeup mirror and put on her black lipstick and raccooned her eyes with fake lashes and eyeliner. Her hair was shorter than most men liked, so she put on a wig that had a longer, traditionally feminine style. She didn't need powder or foundation. She was already white. White as a ghost. White like a bedsheet in a bleach commercial on television. Not a human, pale albino white, like a lack of skin pigmentation, but a luminous, opaque, halogen bulb white. It was one of the quirks of her demonic heritage. Tieflings could be a variety of colors: red, brown, striped, smooth-skinned or scaly, or even bright white or coal black. It all depended on who your demonic parent was. With her white skin, Rachel might almost pass for an especially pale human at a distance, if her horns and her tail didn't give her away. Rachel almost jumped when someone came up behind her and slapped her playfully on her butt. She got an ass that can swallow up a G-string, and up top, 2 bee stings, Raven said. Rachel turned around to see Valerie, whose stripper name was Raven, because she was Rachel's opposite in every way. Where Rachel was slim, almost boyish in her lack of breasts, Raven was full-figured and curvaceous, with an almost comic book pornographic hourglass shape and a corset-trained waist. The only department of femininity where Rachel outshined Valerie was her posterior, which was fuller and firmer and looked like the smooth face of a porcelain doll. Valerie was black. Black as coal, like a permanent marker or a coat of gloss paint on a new luxury car. There was no African heritage to speak of. It was all the work of her demonic parent, in the same way that Rachel was ghost white through her demon blood, not her human mother. God damn it, Val, don't scare me like that. I thought you were a handsy John that snuck backstage, Rachel said. I'm way more of a pervert than any of those pussies, babe. You're my little goth Snow White. When are you gonna get on the pole with me? Valerie asked. Val, I can't dance worth a shit, and I don't have a body, Rachel countered. Bullshit, you've got the best ass in the club. And who the fuck said anything about dancing? Human girls dance. There's no Dita Von Teese here. We just shake our hips, touch ourselves, and moan, Valerie said. Come on, Ray. You think it's that much worse than what you're doing right now? Guys get grabby on us whether we rub our crotches or not. Do a show with me. We'll make so much cash. We'll call ourselves Ebony and Ivory. It'll be so cool. Rachel rolled her eyes. It always came to this. Every time she met Valerie in the dressing room, Valerie was always trying to recruit Rachel to strip, because Rachel was a rare white tiefling, and Valerie wanted to play up the fetishization of their skin color in a duo act. Rachel always brushed it off. It wasn't that she didn't want to strip. She had thought about that, just like she thought about joining the Hell Patrol. It got closer and closer in her mind every day. But what she didn't tell Valerie was how offensive the idea was to her. Rachel didn't want to be fetishized for her skin tone as part of some black and white act. Rachel hated her skin tone. She hated being a rare pigmentation of tiefling, because she knew it meant that there was something special about her demonic parent. Her skin tone, her cat eyes, the shape of her horns that was almost antler-like, where most tieflings had ram-like horns. They were all clues to a past that she hated, something that was more sinister and worse than her current situation. Rachel didn't know exactly what her demonic father was, but like most tieflings, it wasn't a part of her identity she wanted to learn more about. The story was guaranteed to be tragic. The slave camps where humans and demons intermingled during the war were literally hell on Earth. Val, I really don't want to do this every day, Rachel sighed. Why not? It's a great act. We'd make great money. Get the fuck out of here. Maybe get on TV or some shit. Look, I don't want to be poor. None of us want to be poor. But I don't want to get rich by getting fetishized for your white skin that your daddy gave you because he was a serial rapist incubus lord of hell, Valerie finished for her. Yes, Rachel said. Ray, you don't know what your daddy did. I don't know what my daddy did either, and just like you, I don't want to know. You think I feel any better about it than you do? We look like a couple of alien chicks on Star Trek. It's a bad joke, but at least we can use it to get the fuck out of here, Valerie said. I can't get over it, Val, Rachel said. Well, let me know if you do. I just got here. Who's out there right now? Tin Man is here. I was just about to go out and get him a beer and send you to him, Rachel said. Good old Tin Man. At least I'll get one lap dance in tonight. Any big spenders? Valerie asked. Not on Wednesday day shift, honey, Rachel shrugged. Just relax and work your best boy. You know he likes you. Yeah, shame about the legs, though. Does he still... Rachel tried to find words. Oh yeah, he still got it. I can feel it through his jeans when I rub his lap. I doubt he'd come in here if he didn't still need to nut, Valerie said. I just can't figure out if he fucks with those peg legs on or if he takes them off. You could ask. Does it matter? Valerie asked. Val, he really likes you. And he's nice. He's a disabled vet. He's got money from the government for life. Not a lot of money, but he's taken care of. He might be your ride out of this shit if you play your cards right. He might even wife you up, and then you'll get on the dole when he croaks, Rachel said. You're just trying to sell me on him because you don't want to strip together. I'm serious, Val. You know we don't exactly get good clientele around here. You're not gonna be a star that gets picked up by some billionaire to be his trophy wife and spend the rest of your life sucking rich guy cock by the pool. You should seriously consider taking that ride. He gets a check from the government every month. That's better than most of the weirdos that come in here, Rachel said. Yeah, or maybe I'll join Hell Patrol. It was Valerie's turn to roll her eyes. Yeah, well, you know, maybe I will too. Just don't burn that bridge, okay? I know he's not exactly exciting, but he's stable, and it must be nice to not worry about bills. She left Val in the locker room, and went out onto the floor and collected her tray and order from the bar, reached over into the cooler where the bottles were on ice, and grabbed a Budweiser and popped the top. When she came back to Tin Man, he already had the cost of the beer and a couple singles for a tip measured out for her. Rachel put the beer down, took the money off the little table, and bent down to her knees to get eye level with Tin Man. Raven just got here right after me. I told her to come out and take care of you first, Rachel said. Thanks, Ray, you're the best, Tin Man said. Are you going to do that show with her? Did she tell you that stupid idea to do an ebony and ivory theme last time you were in here? Rachel asked. She did, Tin Man admitted. Thought it was a good idea. I'm sure you'd do good. It is a good idea as far as strip shows go, Rachel said. But I don't like the idea of fetishizing my demonic heritage because... You don't have to explain that, Tin Man said. He picked up the beer and took a long swig. I was on a patrol that liberated a camp. I saw the human parents, the newborn tieflings. I know where you came from, Rachel, why you're that color. I wouldn't want to make money that way either. Thanks, Tin Man, Rachel said. I've got to go check the other customers. You tell Raven I told her to take care of you today, okay? Guilt her into it. Don't do that, Rachel. Oh, I would. You're worth it, honey. You're one of the only humans I've ever met that wasn't a complete piece of demon shit. Rachel gave his hand a squeeze, then stood up to go make her rounds on the club floor. Rachel stood up and walked the floor, collecting orders, delivering drinks, making a mental inventory of the customers in the club, how many bills were in their wallets when they opened them, what kind of girls they liked, where to send her co-workers to get the best chances for success. She was back at the bar, picking up a gin and tonic for one of the tables when Jenny, a red devil tiefling with ram horns and straight black hair, came up to the bar from the dressing room, 6 foot tall in her platform pole boots. How's it look out there, Ray? Jenny asked. It's day shift. Val's guy is here, so don't bother with that. She's got it taken care of. I haven't gotten a read on that handful of guys at the stage. They look like the normal day shift trucker crowd. There's a bachelor party at table 5. They're probably the best bet to get paid right now. Jenny looked over her shoulder at the pack of men sitting around table 5, turned back towards the bar. Those guys look like walking yeast infections, Jenny said. I didn't say they were good. I said they were the best we could do right now. Day shift, honey, Rachel shrugged. I wish there was a way we could make management let Johnny just go around all the tables with a nail clipper and make some of these greasy sons of bitches clip their nasty-ass nails before they started trying to slip singles into G-strings, Jenny said. I'd like to see that, Rachel smiled. Well, duty calls, Jenny said, and went to go work the bachelor party. Rachel dropped off the gin and tonic, then found Johnny Octopus at his favorite perch near the front of the club, at a spot that overlooked the bar and the stage, his big tentacle-covered arms folded over his big chest. Keep an eye on Jenny. She doesn't like the look of that bachelor party, Rachel said. I checked their story at the door. They're just a couple of white-collar middle management hacks from out of town. Bunch of desk job pussies slumming for one night. Jen can handle them, Johnny said. But I'll rotate over there and stand in the corner behind table 5 if it makes her feel better. Uh-oh. And then you could hear my phone on the microphone. Oh god, and he kept texting. Is that Russ? By the way, one take, no edits. Alright, sorry. Great, Rachel nodded. She went to go for another round on the floor, but Johnny brushed her arm with his fingertips. Ray, he said, what do you think about that gin and tonic you just brought to table 2? It's a little light on the booze. I told Dylan to pour heavier on the next one or the John won't give the girls any money, Rachel said. No, not the drink, the customer. He's got a bad vibe. I don't recognize him. He's not a regular, and he doesn't look like a tourist like those bachelor party boys either, Johnny said. Well, that's not saying much, Johnny. I mean, I don't think guys that hang out in the strip club on the day shift are exactly the best humanity has to offer, Rachel said. While you were making your rounds getting orders, a couple of the girls took a run at him. He brushed off Tiffany and Jenny really quick, and then he tipped you $5 on that cocktail. So you think he likes me better than the girls? Is that bad? It's suspicious. Guys go to strip clubs to get their dicks rubbed, see some titties, and have pretty girls be nice to them. I don't like the look of any guy that wants to creep on the waitress more than he wants to creep on the strippers. He's a real creep, Rachel, Johnny explained. I'll be careful. You go make sure Jenny's okay, right? Rachel asked. Yeah, but if he does anything weird, you tell me, okay? I know you walk to work. If this guy becomes a regular... I'm not afraid of him, Johnny, Rachel said. Johnny shrugged. Then he went to go stand behind table 5. Rachel watched him walk across the floor. He squeezed between a couple of chairs and came up behind Jenny while she was leaning over one of the guys and gently put a hand on her shoulder. That was his sign to the girls that he was there and he was watching them. He stood near the locker room door and folded his arms over his chest again. Rachel looked to the other side of the club and saw Valerie sitting in Tin Man's lap, giggling and grinding her hips on him. Rachel always thought that Valerie was a little too good at her job. Hey, thanks for listening. I really appreciate it. This is the Chapter 1 recap. We almost got all the way through Chapter 1 without me fucking up 3 times or my little brother texting my phone right in front of the mic. That was my fault for putting the phone next to the mic. I don't know why I didn't think that was going to happen. Okay, so a lot of stuff happens in Chapter 1. Chapter 1 is a big chapter that really kind of sets the stage for what's going to happen in the rest of the story. And the Rachel's kind of walk of shame down the street to really show you what life is like and what the world she lives in is like is a big part of the story. Which is why that the first half of the chapter is so long, talking about how awful the place she lives in and how everybody she knows is poor and destitute. Alright, so let's talk about what happened in Chapter 1. Here's the recap. We meet our protagonist, Rachel, who is a tiefling cocktail waitress at a strip club called Hellhole. We meet Johnny Octopus, who is the bouncer at Hellhole. We meet Valerie, a.k.a. Raven, who is one of the strippers at Hellhole. She is a black tiefling. Rachel is a white tiefling. The other girls are reds. The color is relevant because we are kind of making an allegory to race relations in real life. The thing about tieflings in this universe is that your color as a tiefling has nothing to do with ethnicity, which is actually said in the story itself, but I feel like it's something that's probably going to just like keep happening and keep coming back to. So rest assured that it is intentional and it is social commentary about race, but you know, it's all like we're doing it in a super heavy-handed and obtuse way. All right. So we met Tin Man, who is a Marine Corps vet, and he's got like the Lieutenant Dan thing going on in Forrest Gump. He has 2 prosthetic legs. As he mentions in the story, he was blown up in a Humvee during the war. So we also know now, because Tin Man is a veteran, that there was a war. There was some kind of really bad war that happened in Rachel's lifetime. And it was against hell, and they were fighting demons. We're going to learn more about that and where tieflings come from as the story progresses, because as you may have noticed in Chapter 1, tieflings don't like to talk about where tieflings come from because they know that their deadbeat dad parents are fucking demons. And demons are bad. Alright. So we learned that tieflings, Rachel and the other tieflings, they're all orphans. They're survivors of some kind of terrible war. And they are marginalized third-class citizens. Nobody likes tieflings. We learned that Las Rojas, which is the town that Rachel lives in, it's a fictional town off Interstate 5 in Central California somewhere. It's not a very big town. It's a cow town. We learned that Hell Patrol is a scary government organization that hires tieflings to fight demons that survived the Hell War. So the Hell War is over, but there are still demons roaming around somewhere on the Earth. And the government pays off tieflings to join Hell Patrol to go and hunt down and mop up those demons so that they don't have to waste military effort doing it. So Hell Patrol is effectively they're soldiers of fortune. They're private contractors, and this is how they kind of handle the problem of the tieflings that nobody wants and the demons that everybody wants dead. All right, so that's the chapter 1 recap. Damn, I even made a fucking mistake in that. Thanks again for listening. Please come back again for chapter 2. We're going to be in the club, and we're going to find out more about that guy that Rachel served a gin and tonic to. Chapter 2 is also a long chapter. A lot of stuff happens, and things are going to get way worse for Rachel before they get better. Should talk a little bit about how long this story is and what you can expect from it. So, Hell Patrol Origins is 16 chapters long, and it's the rags to riches story of Rachel's humble origin as a cocktail waitress to how she becomes a badass demon hunter. So this is not actually so much about badass demon hunting as how you become a badass demon hunter. It's the origin story. The first 6 chapters of the story are mostly gothic horror and suspense. And then the next couple chapters, there's a lot of like military sci-fi kind of crap. There's a lot of gun porn and a lot of car porn for people that are into military junk and cars. And then basically the last couple chapters of the book are hardcore biblical demonology. I should mention that everything related to demons in this book comes from real life demonology. Most of my notes about demonology from this story are cribbed from the Key of Solomon, which is biblical apocrypha, and also the Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of Witches, which is this massive banned book by a mad excommunicated monk from the 15th or 14th century, and he wrote this giant story about like how hell is organized, where demons come from, how demons create more demons. So the way that tieflings are born in this story, in this universe, which we will get to eventually, is actually the biblically correct way from both the Bible and the Malleus Maleficarum. So there's going to be some weird shit about how demons and humans intermingle and create tieflings and get on this earth. And rest assured, it's going to be weird as shit, but it's also going to be biblically accurate. This is not like cringy shit that I made up to be an edgelord. This is just actual biblical edgelording. So don't be surprised when it gets weird, because it will get weird. Come back for chapter 2.